One of the best ways to support the FTF podcast is to check out our Patreon over at patreon.com/finish the fight for exclusive episodes, insights, interviews, and plenty more.
If you're an athlete, you know the greatest motivator of all is the fear of letting your teammates down. After all, a team is only as good as its weakest link. So you owe it to those wearing the same jersey as you to be your best every time you step on the field. That's why there's no vape in team. When you vape, you can expose your lungs to toxic chemicals that can damage your lungs. If you're a step behind, the team's a step behind. Brought to you by The Real Cost and the FDA.
Welcome back to Finish the Fight, a gaming podcast,
where we produce and develop the highest quality gaming research in podcast form.
I am your host, Alex Kendall.
And I am your host, Derek Baker.
And today, we are wrapping up, as far as we're releasing this, the Halo series and talking about Halo Infinite.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something I think that we've put off for a long time because we kind of wanted to give it a little room to breathe, where maybe some of the initial feedback was a little vitriolic. Maybe we just, needed to let things play out and see how they went. But I think that most of us have a pretty good idea of what Halo Infinite is now and how we feel about the game.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. Let's finish up Halo. Let's finish the fight. So Halo Infinite is a 2021 first-person shooter game developed by 343 Industries and published by Xbox Game Studios. It is the sixth mainline entry in the Halo series, following Halo 5 Guardians, released in 2015. The campaign follows the human super soldier Master Chief and his fight against the enemy Banished on the Forerunner ring world Zeta Halo, also known as Installation 07. Unlike previous installments in the series, the multiplayer portion of the game is free to play. The game was intended to release as a launch title for the Xbox Series XS, but was delayed in August 2020 after Infinite's gameplay reveal in July of 2020 drew negative feedback from both critics and Halo fans. Following an open beta release of the multiplayer component on November 15, 2021, coinciding with the franchise's 20th anniversary, the campaign was released for Windows, Xbox One, and Series XS on December 8, 2021. Halo Infinite received generally favorable reviews from critics, with some deeming the game a return to form for the series. Praise was directed towards its visuals, gameplay, open-world design, soundtrack, and story.
And of course, I think that we all know a lot about the developers of Halo, but in case you don't, let's just give a little bit of a brief synopsis of the development team, I guess, behind the initial Halo and Bungie, and then their successor, 343 Industries. 343 Industries is an American video game developer located in Redmond, Washington, part of Xbox Game Studios, headed by Pierre Hintz. The studio is responsible for the Halo series of military science fiction games, originally created and produced by Bungie, and is the developer of the Slipspace engine. Named after the Halo character 343 Guilty Spark, the studio was established in 2007 after the departure of Bungie. After co-developing downloadable content for Halo Reach, Bungie's final Halo game, 343 Industries released Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary and Halo 4, the latter starting the studio's Reclaimer saga of the mainline games.
Now, as far as the formation of 343 goes, Bungie was working on their next project when they were acquired by Microsoft in 2000. Their in-development game, Halo Combat Evolved, turned into a launch title for Microsoft's Xbox console. Bungie and Microsoft's cultures never meshed, and after the release of Halo 2, Bungie began renegotiating for better profit sharing for their next game, Halo 3. These discussions led to Bungie announcing its independence from Microsoft in 2007. While Bungie was still contracted to deliver new Halo games, the rights to the franchise remained with Microsoft. Xbox general manager Bonnie Ross recalled that her colleagues felt Halo was a waning property and looked at contracting an outside company to produce new games. The series' deep backstory and universe appealed to Ross, and she argued for a different approach. Ross's pitch won over Microsoft Game Studios general manager Shane Kim, and she was put in charge of a new internal Halo studio, 343 Industries, named after the Halo character 343 Guilty Spark, as Derek has said. 343 Industries started with a staff of roughly a dozen people in late 2007. Bungie staffer Frank O'Connor assisted in the transition and quit Bungie to serve as 343 Industries franchise director. Ross's vision for Halo also impressed Microsoft art director Kiki Wolfkill, who joined the team as a studio head. During the transition, 343 Industries worked with the company Starlight Runner to interview Bungie's staff and compile a centralized story Bible for the universe. 343 Industries also worked with Bungie on their last Halo projects, Halo 3 ODST in 2009 and Halo Reach in 2010.
In July 2009, it was announced that 343 Industries was working on a 7-part Halo anime series called Halo Legends. Later that year, the studio created Halo Waypoint, a downloadable application that tracks a user's Halo accomplishments. 343 Industries also increased staff for Halo development, recruiting staff from the defunct Pandemic Studios. 343 Industries also collaborated with Certain Affinity on Halo Reach's second and third map packs. The company was responsible for the remastered version of Halo Combat Evolved, titled Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, which was released on November 15, 2011, to celebrate the 10th year since the release of the first franchise installment on November 15, 2001. Following Bungie's completion of their last Halo title, Halo Reach, 343 Industries was eventually given complete control of the Halo franchise, including servers and data, on March 31, 2012. The studio's development of Halo 4, which began in 2009, was completed in September. It was released on November 6, 2012, as the first title of the new Halo Reclaimer trilogy, which would include at least 2 more installments over the years. At E3 2013, Microsoft and 343 Industries announced the next Halo installment set for release on the Xbox One. Shortly after the announcement, the Reclaimer trilogy was confirmed by Microsoft Studios corporate vice president Phil Spencer to be expanded into the Reclaimer saga. The following year at E3 2014, the official title was revealed as Halo 5 Guardians, along with plans for its release on October 27, 2015. Microsoft, in a contract with Mega Bloks, is in conjunction with 343 Industries to manufacture a new line of toys and other memorabilia for the Halo saga. Halo 5 Guardians was released on October 27, 2015, with semi-exclusive content to those who purchased select Mega Bloks sets. 343 Industries has since released free monthly content updates since Halo 5's launch.
Now, at E3 2018, Microsoft Studios and 343 Industries announced the next Halo game titled Halo Infinite, which was originally scheduled to launch in holiday 2020 for Xbox One and Windows PCs, in addition to being a launch title to the new Xbox console. However, the game was delayed to release in 2021, in part due to the COVID-19 pandemic forcing the 343 staff to switch to remote work. Infinite was the first game to be developed using 343's in-house Slip Space engine. After Infinite's release, 343 Industries supported the game via updates. On September 12, 2022, Bonnie Ross announced she would step down as studio head. Following her departure, her responsibilities were split into 3 positions. Pierre Hintz took over as studio head, Brian Koshi became GM of the franchise, and Elizabeth Van Wyck took over business and operations. Now, amid wide layoffs in the tech industry and Microsoft, 343 Industries was heavily affected, and Bloomberg News reported the studio would be making large changes to its development structure going forward.
Now let's talk about the development for Halo Infinite. Developer 343 Industries produced Halo 4, as we said, and Halo 5 Guardians as part of the Reclaimer saga, a series of games initially planned as a trilogy. Halo Infinite was developed by 343 Industries with assistance from Skybox Labs, Sparasoft, The Coalition, Certain Affinity, and Atom Hawk. The studio played with the idea of making Halo an open-world game, drawing inspiration from other video games such as The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, with the idea of allowing players to explore a large open area with the freedom of completing the game in any order. While reception to Halo 5 was overall positive, the campaign received criticism for not including enough of Master Chief. 343 Industries promised to refocus on the character going forward. Halo Infinite utilizes the new Slipspace engine. The game was written by Paul Crocker, who was also Associate Creative Director of the campaign. Justin Dinges and Nicolas Bouvier were chosen as artists. The multiplayer component of the game was directed by Tom French, Associate Creative Director of Multiplayer, and Pierre Hintz, Project Lead and Partner Head of Multiplayer. The tools used for the Slipspace engine used basic development tools called Faber. Some parts of Faber dated back to the early 2000s, having also been used for Bungie's Halo games. As a result, its coding became notoriously difficult to use by 343, being considered technical debt. 343 had also excessively relied on hiring contract workers to the point of making up half the studio, according to estimates. Due to Microsoft's policy that limits contract workers to keep their jobs for up to 18 months, the number of workers at 343 Industries gradually fell. Halo Infinite was beset by further issues during development. The game suffered from creative instability for some time. The studio was described to be split into fiefdoms, and that the struggle to complete the game and the conflicting decisions resulted in 4 or 5 games being developed simultaneously. 2/3 of the planned game was cut by summer 2019, which severely removed some of the initial vision. Despite this, the planned deadline of November 2020 to be a launch game for the Xbox Series X and S was decided to be impossible to meet. Development director Frank O'Connor stated in August 2019 that Halo Infinite was being built so it plays and looks fantastic on Xbox One, but would have enhancements when played on Xbox Series X and S.
The gameplay reveal on July 23, 2020, saw criticism from the gaming community for the game's visual quality, which saw further changes to development. On August 27, 2020, 343 Industries announced that Joseph Staten, the former lead writer and cinematic director of the Halo series at Bungie, had joined as campaign project lead for Halo Infinite. 343 later announced that Staten's role had changed to head of creative for Halo Infinite, and Staten had convinced Microsoft to delay the game to 2021 in order to release a stable launch. He had provided a list of reasons why the game would be better if the deadline was pushed. When the game was delayed, features were added and improved, including the graphics. On October 28th of 2020, Bloomberg News reported that now former studio head Chris Lee had departed the project. Halo Infinite was intended to have split-screen campaign co-op in response to the backlash of its removal in Halo 5 Guardians, but the feature was delayed several times and was ultimately canceled by September 2022. The game supports both cross-platform play and cross-platform save progression between Xbox and Windows versions. Campaign Network Co-op was eventually included as part of the Winter Update in November 2022, along with several other features, including the ability to replay old missions via the in-game tech map.
Now, the marketing had some hiccups, as the Industry Exposition E3 2020 was canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Microsoft revealed the first gameplay footage of Halo Infinite via livestream. On June 24, 2020, the official Halo YouTube channel premiered a teaser titled Signal Detected, Tag Designation Foe, which featured an audio clip of an anonymous character who represents the Banished, a faction introduced in Halo Wars 2. Among the merchandising tie-ins for the game was Monster Energy Drink, a Moa burger-flavored version of Pringles, and Dr. Squatch Spartan Soap. Participants could earn a variety of in-game weapon skins, player nameplates, and weapon emblems. There were also several augmented reality experiences through Snapchat as part of the promotion. Coinciding with Infinite's gameplay reveal was a trailer, Step Inside, produced by 215 McCann, who had previously worked on the Believe campaign for Halo 3. The spot, showing Master Chief's armor being made, was the kickoff to a wider campaign, Become, which focused on how the events of the games were shaped by ordinary people in the Halo universe. At E3 2021, Microsoft unveiled 2 new trailers for the game, one showcasing the multiplayer campaign, and the other a general story trailer. On August 25, 2021, a CGI trailer for the first season of Infinite's multiplayer mode was released, focusing on the backstory of the new character Commander Agrina in an occupied London. Microsoft created an Infinite-themed console and Elite wireless controller to tie in with the game's release. Other tie-in hardware included hard drives, keyboards, mice, and a limited number of Halo-themed Radeon RX 6900 graphics processing units.
And basically everything else you could ever think of was a piece of marketing. I can't wait to have Hot Pockets, Master Chief Hot Pockets. Can't wait to have them Bagel Bites and them other things, Master Chief Bagel Bites and other things.
Honestly, when's the last time you saw something like that? I don't think I've seen anything like it since Pokemon or Sonic.
Yeah, it was very much it was very much going into being like, oh, Halo Infinite's a $500 million game. And just talking about the marketing that went into it, like they had tie-ins with basically every product you could think of. Again, going to like Dr. Squatch, where you're talking about soaps and, shampoos and other stuff like that, into foods, into other stuff you could get. And we've seen tie-ins like that with even other Halo games and especially Microsoft properties where it was like, hey, Monster and like Red Bull, stuff like that, where it's like, if you collect enough of these or, get these codes, you'll unlock armor, you'll unlock weapons, even Overwatch and like Apex did it as well, so that you would like get involved with these things. But yeah, Master Chief, it's pretty much any Microsoft property. So it's Halo and Minecraft was kind of like every tie-in you could think of they put together.
And that's not really new for them, right? Like Mountain Dew, I remember, did a lot of stuff with Xbox where you could, I think, on the cap, get codes and stuff of like, oh, I'm going to get some Xbox Live, like free Xbox Live. Maybe you'd get points. Maybe you'd get a trial month or something like that. Back when it was OG Xbox. But
yeah, it was so much of that tied in. So it's cool. I do like market flooding, where you basically just kind of like, hey, we have these dollars. If someone comes to those dollars, just give them our IP and like come out with an agreement with it. So I do love that. Like right now for me in my world, Dungeons and Dragons is doing that. Like they're literally partnering with everyone. For those of you who don't know, August 1st, the official Dungeons and Dragons U.S. Postal Service stamps are coming out.
Oh, baby.
So gotta pick those up. So yeah.
Is it going to have Chris Pine?
Unfortunately not. It's going to be the artwork of the official game. So it's a sad day. No Chris Pine.
No Chris Pine, I'm out.
But no, it is cool to see like the market flood with it. And it was everywhere. But the issue being, and I think a lot of you, if you followed the pod earlier on, know my opinion of Halo Infinite, all these marketing deals were already planned out. And so with Halo getting delayed, the Pringles were already hitting the shelf. The monsters were already on the shelf. And so you had to save these codes for basically a year until the game came out. Now, you could put them in your account for some of these, but it was still frustrating to be like, hey, all of this stuff's coming out, but we can't play it for another year. So that we'll get into when we start to talk about the reactions and some other stuff in the episode, but it was a very interesting time in the Haloverse. Now, the gameplay, for most of you who've played, is very similar, but does bring in that Breath of the Wild-esque thing that people wanted to try and bring. Now, Halo Infinite is a first-person shooter, as we all know. In the game's story mode, players assume the role of a player character, Master Chief, as he wages a war against the Banished, an alien faction or a split of the Covenant. Players traverse the open-world Zeta Halo, fighting the Banished with a mixture of weapons and vehicles. Players also have access to special equipment, such as the grapple shot, which pulls Chief towards foes or retrieves items. Again, one of the better things they added to the game. The campaign mode's semi-open world structure allows players to freely explore parts of the Ring World Zeta Halo setting, which are segmented off from each other and initially impassable. Scattered across the environment are forward operating bases, or FOBs, which can be captured once cleared of enemies. Captured bases serve as fast travel points. Other points of interest found across Zeta Halo's surface include high-value targets to eliminate, Marine squads to rescue, and banished propaganda towers to destroy. Completing these side objectives earns the player Valor, which is used to earn weapons and vehicles that players can call in from FOBs. The more linear environments within the ring's surface hew more to traditional Halo mission design, These quote-unquote dungeons advance the story and cannot be replayed once completed. Collectibles found in the environment, such as audio logs, provide additional story details. The campaign was updated later on, giving the player the choice to replay old missions via the in-game TAC map. Now, Infinite's multiplayer component features Deathmatch, Capture the Flag, and other modes played in standard 4 vs 4 and big team battle variants. The latter bumps the player count in match up to 24. Ability pickups allow players to activate special powers a limited number of times. Powers include dashing, active camouflage, and repulsor charges that can knock enemies, projectiles, and vehicles back. A training mode allowed new players to test weapons in weapon drills or play against computer-controlled bots in practice matches.
Now, Halo Infinite is set in the year 2560. During the events of Halo 5 Guardians, the human AI Cortana and allied AIs rebel against their creators, the United Nations Space Command, or the UNSC. Taking control of ancient Forerunner weapons known as Guardians, Cortana subjugates the galaxy. Also fighting against Cortana and the UNSC are the Banished, a mercenary organization composed of aliens and humans, led by the brute Atriox. The game is set on the Forerunner Ringworld Installation 7 known as Zeta Halo, which had mysteriously suffered damage. The player character Master Chief, Petty Officer John 117, is a UNSC Spartan super soldier on a mission to neutralize Cortana, his former partner. In addition to the narrative told in the campaign, Halo Infinite's multiplayer component features a seasonal story that centers on Spartan commander Laurette Agrina's efforts to lead a new generation of Spartan super soldiers in the aftermath of Cortana's attacks on various UNSC military strongholds. So that's what kind of sets us up for the events of Halo Infinite.
So in December 2559, the UNSC ship Infinity arrives at Halo Installation 07. Upon arrival, the ship is ambushed by several dreadnoughts that are operated by the Banished. While defending the ship's hangar bay from multiple raiding parties, the Master Chief is caught off guard by Atriox, the leader of the Banished, and is subsequently defeated in a one-on-one duel. Atriox throws the Chief from the edge of the hangar bay, leaving him stranded in space. 6 months later, a UNSC pilot recovers the Chief adrift in space. While the pilot wants to flee, Master Chief insists on continuing the fight against the Banished. The Chief and the pilot travel to Zeta Halo, which has been severely damaged by an unknown calamity. On the ring, Master Chief locates the Weapon, an AI designed to imitate Cortana in order to capture her for deletion. While the Weapon states that she was successful in her mission, she has failed to self-delete as per her directives. Master Chief retrieves the Weapon and experiences visions of Cortana's memories and thoughts left as residual data.
Zeta Halo is controlled by the Banished, now led by Atriox's lieutenant, Escharum, after Atriox's apparent death. The dying brute is invigorated to have Master Chief as his final opponent. Master Chief, the Weapon, and a reluctant pilot rally scattered UNSC forces on the ring's surface, while looking for any Spartans that haven't been picked off by the hand of Atriox, Escherum's team of Spartan killers. Inside the Forerunner installation known as the Conservatory, Master Chief encounters Despondent Pyre, the AI caretaker of Zeta Halo. Despondent Pyre attempts to warn Master Chief of a threat contained on the installation, but is destroyed by the Harbinger, an alien awoken by the Banished. The Harbinger claims that her people, the Endless, were imprisoned by the Forerunners on Zeta Halo. She has allied herself with the Banished in order to rebuild the Silent Auditorium, a facility that will allow her to free her people. The Banished, in turn, will use the repaired Halo as a weapon against humanity.
Master Chief defends the pilot from a duo of Spartan killers deployed by Escharum. The pilot reveals that he was a civilian engineer aboard Infinity who stole a Pelican to flee the battle. The Chief comforts him, admitting his own guilt over his failure to save Cortana. Master Chief and the Weapon stop Zeta Halo's repair process by disabling a series of spires on the ring, but are unable to stop a section of the auditorium from being rebuilt. When the Harbinger attempts to hack the Weapon, the Chief activates a failsafe to delete the AI. The Weapon repels the Harbinger and deactivates the failsafe, angrily asking why Master Chief does not trust her. After seeing a vision in which Cortana uses the Guardians to destroy the Brute's home planet of Doisek, the weapon realizes that she is a copy of Cortana and insists that Master Chief delete her so she does not become like her predecessor. Master Chief refuses, stating that he wants to trust her. The pilot is captured by Jaga Undamne, an elite Spartan killer and a close friend of Escharum, as bait for Master Chief. Unwilling to let the pilot die, Master Chief infiltrates the Banished facility and saves him, killing Jaga Undamne and Escharum in the process. Master Chief and the weapon rush to the auditorium to stop the Harbinger. The two learn that Cortana was captured by Atriox after the weapon locked her down. Upon realizing that Atriox intended to access the ring's secrets, Cortana, destroying herself, damaged Zeta Halo and prevented the weapon from being deleted. In a recorded message, Cortana says goodbye to the Chief and encourages him to work with the weapon. The Chief defeats the Harbinger, but is unable to stop her from contacting someone regarding the Endless. Afterwards, the weapon and Chief reunite with the pilot, who reveals his name is Fernando Esparza. The weapon decides to choose a name for herself. But in a post-credits scene, an alive Atriox uses a key to unlock a sealed door leading to the Endless. If the game is finished on Legendary difficulty, the scene features dialogue between Despondent Pyre and a Forerunner official after the imprisonment of the Endless. When Despondent Pyre states that she cannot oversee the study of the Endless alone, the Forerunner replies that the AI offensive bias has been deployed to assist her.
So that's the main campaign story, but let's talk about the multiplayer story. In late 2552, during the Battle for Earth, the Covenant occupy the center of London. While Covenant patrols scout the city in search of surviving humans, a young woman named Lorette Agirna sneaks around the city streets and attempts to evade the patrols. She is spotted by a pack of brutes, but is saved by a group of Spartans. Agirna later joins the UNSC military and eventually goes on to join the Spartan 4 program. 7 years after the fall of the Covenant, in the wake of Cortana's attack on Laconia Station and the disappearance of both the Master Chief and the UNSC Infinity, Agirna, now serving as a Spartan commander, begins training a new generation of Spartans and establishes new training facilities on classified frontier worlds, such as the Avery J. Johnson Academy of Military Science. Sometime after the establishment of the Academy, Spartans Sigrid Eklund and Hugh Din discover that an old UNSC fleet depot located on the planet Camber has been repurposed by the Banished to serve as a shipbreaking yard. After observing their activity for 2 days, the Spartans learn that the Banished have successfully created their own AI construct. The AI, named Iritus, detects Eklund and Din's presence in the yard and alerts the Banished, forcing the duo to hijack a Banished Phantom in order to escape. Iritus, however, follows them and attempts to lock down the Phantom's flight controls. In order to regain access to the flight controls, Din allows Iritus to infect his neural interface, leaving him unconscious. After returning to the Academy, Eklund informs Agirna of their encounter with the Banished. Agirna devises a plan to pull Iritus out of the Din's neural interface and trap him on the Academy servers. Meanwhile, Iritus attempts to break Din by forcing him to relive his memories of Operation Interior Exile, a botched UNSC attempt to secure Forerunner artifacts that resulted in numerous deaths. Agirna's plan eventually succeeds, and Iritus, along with a complete archive of the Banished's operations on Camber, is secured, saving Din's life in the process. After the capture of Iritus, Eklund and Din choose to remain at the Academy, while Agirna prepares for a larger conflict with the Banished. While practicing at the Academy's firing range, Eklund expresses her concerns over Din's state of mind after the incident on Camber, but Din assures her that she and Agirna have nothing to worry about. Eklund introduces Din to one of the Academy's newly recruited Spartans, noting their role in the actions that saved Din's life. Din thanks the Spartan for their efforts and briefly reflects on his own military training at the Academy. Meanwhile, during a war game session at the Academy, a detonation of a stray frag grenade scrapes the paint of a door named BLDG-09, revealing that the paint was covering the seal of the Office of Naval Intelligence, or the ONI. Sometime later, Din and the Spartan recruit discover the door's markings and open it, revealing an entry point to a secret ONI base, built at the beginning of the Human Covenant War. Din reveals that he received his first set of Spartan armor at the base, before realizing that Iratus may have been attempting to learn the location of the ONI base from him. Moments later, Iratus hijacks the base's power systems. He declares that the base's secrets now belong to the Banished, and takes control of a set of SPI armor.
Ooh la la.
And then we all fight.
Yeah, I didn't know much. Yeah, I didn't know much about the multiplayer story. Going into it, it's cool. The 343 put kind of an effort into some of this stuff. Didn't put much effort into the game, but put effort into this stuff. Yeah, so let's move over to the music and sound. So the music for Halo Infinite is a collaboration between Gareth Coker, Curtis Schweitzer, Joel Korelitz, Alex Bohr, and Eternal Time and Space, overseen by 343 Industries music supervisor Joel Yarger. Infinite's soundtrack was released digitally on December 8th, 2021 in 2 albums, one covering the score for the campaign and another covering the music for the game's multiplayer component. As for release, Halo Infinite was announced, as we know, in 2018, with its release confirmed at the time for Xbox One and Windows. As that went on, we see it at E3 2019 the following year, and Halo Infinite is confirmed to be the launch game for the next-gen Xbox console. As it keeps getting pushed back with COVID-19 pandemic forcing the developers to remote work, the Xbox Game Showcase on July 23rd, 2020, showcases 343 studio head Chris Lee stating that a public beta was unlikely due to the impact of the ongoing pandemic, despite Microsoft stating at E3 2018 that there would be a public beta ahead of the launch. Now, 343 Industries said that the game would receive a free ray tracing update post-launch. On July 31st, 2020, it was announced that the game's multiplayer portion would be released as a free-to-play game. Now, this did start a bit of hoopla because this was also in the era of a lot of games doing that split of like, hey, the game's free, guys, come play it. It's free. And not to say people weren't promised that there wouldn't be microtransactions, but that's basically what led to so much of multiplayer being free and the campaign being split, and the idea of, as Derek had mentioned earlier in their episode, basically 10 games being produced at the same time because no one could agree on anything. But hey, 343 is a great studio. On August 11th, 2020, it was announced that the game had been delayed to an undefined date in 2021 due to a range of factors impacting development, including the very convenient for them COVID-19 pandemic. Microsoft initially planned to split the game into several parts, but ultimately decided against it. It was reported that 343 Industries was heavily outsourcing the game to external developers, resulting in development troubles, and it was a contributing factor to the delay. Speaking to IGN, a spokesperson for 343 Industries denied that the Halo TV show was having an impact on Halo Infinite's development, but IGN stated that, quote, the spokesperson did not speak to the report's claim that a significant portion of the game is being outsourced to third-party contractors. So 2 piles of garbage being produced at the same time. In December 2020, 343 Industries announced Halo Infinite would be released in late 2021, later giving a December 8th, 2021 release date.
A technical test for the multiplayer portion of the game ran from July 29th to August 2nd of 2021, where select members of the Halo Insider program could compete in teams across 3 maps against bots in 4 vs 4 Slayer mode. On August 20th, 2021, it was announced that the game would be launching without campaign co-op, a longtime feature of the series. It was also announced that Forge, a creative environment where players could design their own maps and game types, would not be available at launch. On August 25th, 2021, Infinite was announced to be releasing on December 8th of that year. Additional testing flights ran September 23rd through the 26th and September 30th through October 3rd, with the first round centered around 4 vs 4 player vs player multiplayer, and the second introducing 12 vs 12 big team battle on the larger map fragmentation. 343 used player feedback during the flights to make changes to the game before release. On October 25th, 343 Industries published a video depicting the game's campaign mode for the first time since its initial panned debut in July of 2020. The footage offered a first look into several previously untold aspects of the mode's gameplay and plot. And on November 15th, an open beta of Halo Infinite's multiplayer aspect was released on Windows, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S in celebration of the Xbox and Halo series' 20th anniversary. The game was released to manufacturing on November 19th of 2021, and Halo Infinite released on December 8th of 2021.
Now, as far as general reception, I have it broken into pre-release and release, because I think, as most of us know, pre-release was pretty rocky. So following the campaign gameplay reveal for Halo Infinite on July 23rd, 2020, publications and audiences expressed disappointment over the graphics and performance. Eurogamer wrote that, quote, Halo Infinite looks like the fake plastic trees version of Halo, like a video game designed with Mega Bloks in mind. It pops in all the wrong places. It doesn't feel grounded. It doesn't feel like it has depth. It feels, well, surface level, smooth, and uninteresting. Aaron Greenberg, general manager of Xbox marketing, responded in an interview with Inside Gaming, stating, listen, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. It's July. We're far from launching the holidays. You're seeing a work in progress game. He said that the final game would be a visual showcase. Narrative experience director Dan Chosich tweeted, I want you to know your voice matters, plus is heard. I always want to live up to the legacy that Bungie pioneered. I personally care a lot about honoring that. Now, a screenshot of the gameplay showing an attacking brute with a deadpan expression, given the moniker Craig by internet commenters, became an internet meme and was embraced by 343 Industries community director Brian Gerard. When 343 Industries released improved gameplay videos closer to Halo Infinite's release, they included shots that purposely showed an improvement in visuals and appearance of Craig, which character and combat director Steve Dyke and character art leader Brian Repka considered a glow-up, and that the community response to Craig was one of the factors in gaining some more time to finish work and get brutes to a place where the team is happy with them. A reference to Craig in the form of an Easter egg was added to Halo Infinite's campaign.
In October 2020, 343 Industries announced changes to the player color system in Infinite, replacing the system of primary and secondary colors in past Halo games with coatings, based on layers of patterns and markings designed to enable greater player expression. 343 planned to make coatings available through microtransactions, as well as rewards for purchasing tie-in products such as Monster Energy drinks, Mondelez branded snacks, and other items. The plan was received negatively, with fans and critics expressing concern about the impact of microtransactions. 343 Industries community manager John Junaszek defended the system, stating that it enabled greater detail and variation, and that other methods of obtaining coatings would be made available as special rewards in addition to paid purchases. In contrast to the game's initial gameplay reveal, Halo Infinite's multiplayer beta release in August 2021 received praise, particularly for its gameplay improvements. The multiplayer's Battle Pass system, however, received criticism for its slow progression. In response, 343 adjusted the Battle Pass progression to speed up progress.
Now we get to the post-release. This is after we've already talked about what it was looking like. How do people see it after the game's released? Halo Infinite received generally favorable reviews according to Metacritic. Games Radar summarized it as saying, Halo as you've never seen it before, and Eurogamer called the release of Halo Infinite in the series the best it's been in a decade. Tech Radar wrote Halo Infinite was a triumph, saying, from its captivating story to its liberating gameplay, developer 343 Industries has created a campaign that will resonate with veteran Halo fans and inspire a new generation of players. IGN believed the Halo series to still belong amongst the best shooter games, especially praising Halo Infinite's single-player campaign and multiplayer, though considered the rewards gained in the latter's Battle Pass to be lackluster. The game's use of open world design and greater player freedom in certain areas received particular praise from others. Additionally, GameSpot editor Jordan Ramier praised the game's new grapple shot feature and rewarding single player progression system.
PC Mag complimented the soundtrack for providing a mix of atmospheric exploration music, thrilling combat tracks, and songs and compositions that exist somewhere in between. PC Games N praised the feel of each gun and engaging variety of the arsenal, saying, switching to the plasma rifle to knock the shield off a jackal, and then back to the VK-78 Commando to get a snappy headshot never gets old. While praising the combat, PC Gamer were mixed on the level design of lush forests, valleys, and marine rescue setup, finding it strongly evoked the mission Halo from Combat Evolved, but felt inferior to the timeless design of the Silent Cartographer, or even Halo 3's less fondly remembered Meat Labyrinth, Cortana. Rock Paper Shotgun liked the world design but criticized the plot as being held back by prior entries. Infinite's story is still ankle-clamped by the overindulgence of its predecessors, even though it does what it can to shrink things down into a tighter, more coherent spectacle. End quote. The game was selected by Game Informer as their game of the year, and by January of 2022, the game crossed the 20 million player mark.
I've thrown some jabs, which are deserved for the most part with this, but Halo Infinite, as far as campaign goes, and this is just kind of where I'm seeing it, I think was a great improvement in just also understanding what the hell was going on over 4 and 5. And this is a whole thing that comes into basically 343 and what they decided to do with the Halo series, which, again, there's very much that cutoff of fans at like Halo 3 was the end.
Yeah.
Like that was our great trilogy we had. ODST was a fun little side quest that was like cool to have, but 3 ended it. And you didn't need any other extra information to understand the main storyline.
Right.
That was the biggest thing. There were, within the Halo universe, there were definitely like terminals and other stuff you could find that expanded on the lore of Halo. And Bungie left saying, hey, the biggest thing we want for our players is that we want the Forerunners and all of the stuff that came before to be kind of a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
It's this very much typical stuff that's in sci-fi, like stuff that came before, stuff that comes way after. It's very mythical.
Right.
Then coming out with 4 and 5, you now have Prometheans, the idea of Forerunners, and these other people that are coming involved. And I remember playing 4, and I'm like, why am I shooting space dogs? What is going on now? And it's like, oh man, you didn't read the 7 books, the miniseries, the comic, and then this webtoon that we had. You don't understand what's going on between 3 and 4. And then that was even expanded more between 4 and 5. And I know I'm digging at that. I know a lot of you love those games, and I'm not harping on anyone for loving anything. I just think as a fan, those should be great. And they are great supporting materials. When we did a lot of the Halo stuff in the early podcast days, when we read the books, like a lot of those books for the most part were very enjoyable. And it was cool to get that expanse, but in that realm. And so Halo 5 ended with Cortana bringing up and claiming all of these humans and bots and all these other things to come to her side and taking over these Forerunner structures and huge bots. You're like, how are we ever going to defeat Cortana? And then Infinite comes, and it's in a brute telling you, just being like, oh yeah, we beat her. Like that was the summation between them.
Yeah. It definitely feels like there is a big disconnect in the story of the second trilogy versus the first trilogy, which even though those books added some good details in between those games, I feel like if you had just played Halo 1, 2, and then 3, you had a pretty great idea of everything going on. And I agree. I'm firmly in the camp of Halo 3 being a super nice wrap up to that story. But it's a weird thing to navigate because I don't think we really had video game characters that all too often had stories that expanded as long as this one has. Like, it was sort of
Mhm.
in my opinion, a newer thing to sort of try and carry on. Like, you don't want to just abandon the Master Chief, right? Like, that is a huge deal for Microsoft. And so, while as a fan of the game, feeling like Halo 3 was a fantastic wrap up, they did sort of leave it open ended of, does he come back? Is he needed elsewhere? That sort of thing. But, to me, I was totally happy with the series kind of ending and moving on to, what happened with the other Spartans, what happened with the other characters during all this stuff going on. And I thought that that's sort of the direction we were trending. And then, yeah, they decided, hey, no, we're not done with Master Chief. He's too popular. They did another trilogy. And it's just a real different vibe from those first three. And I agree with you. If you really like these games, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just a different flavor for sure. And that's undeniable to me.
Yeah, and it's a flavor I will say I love for Infinite. I thought the campaign was very enjoyable. I was very wary with the talks of open world because that was such a buzzword after you had Breath of the Wild come out. Everyone was like, I want a Breath of the Wild.
We've said it before. Legend of Zelda has influenced every single game ever, and it doesn't stop.
It was everything. And it was basically in 2018 onward, especially 2020. The buzzwords were, do you want a Souls-like game or do you want a Breath of the Wild game? Which of these two games are you trying to do? And so I was very wary about that, but playing in that, there's definitely some rough patches in the world structure, but it was actually really fun to be able to go around, jump into random skirmishes. The grapple shot is one of the best additions that's happened in Halo in a long time in terms of traversing, in terms of like grabbing a grunt and be able to chuck a grunt around or grab, like a plasma coil, like explosive barrel and toss it at your enemy. Very, very cool way of doing it. Really, really enjoyed that. Loved a lot of the campaign ideas of it. Loved your co-pilot that you get. Loved the idea of the weapon. It was still the idea of like throwing Cortana in this, and it was kind of confusing-ish. But I think overall, the campaign as it stands, I think was pretty solid. Multiplayer, I think, is where a lot of my frustration comes from in this. Released separately, released later, and released with a very predatory battle pass that was something like 500 hours of play to complete the first one. And that's when 343 was like, whoa, okay, we'll adjust it.
Yeah.
But the rewards for a lot of games, Apex, Smite, Overwatch, a lot of your final rewards for a paid battle pass are typically like really rare skins, some in-game currency. Even in Overwatch, a lot of the times you earn back a lot of the money or like coins that you spent, like you would earn those back. This one did not have that. This one, again, earned tints. So the colors that you and I grew up with in the different Halo games, we had to buy those.
Yeah.
And like tints and like individual shoulder pads and things like that. I think it's really ridiculous to not have as part of a game. If you want to make some like Hayabusa armor and put that as like a reward, okay. But not me having to earn the individual like parts of a piece of armor in that totality. And so the early Halo multiplayer seasons suffered from that severely. They also suffered because there was limited play. You and I couldn't just jump into like, let's say we wanted to play capture the flag on these maps. Ooh, that's not in multiplayer rotation right now. You can't play that. And their idea was to create that little bit of FOMO, a little bit of like playing through seasons and getting used to this style of play. But it wasn't what Halo was. Like you stripped out what people wanted. Again, couch co-op. You stripped out playing with your friends. You stripped out these things that were so core and integral to Halo, and the promises that 343 spouted over the years of like always staying true to it. We're going to do our own thing though. We're going to stay true to these things was utterly frustrating. And, blaming it on COVID, which 100%, a lot of that was from COVID, but so much of that was also from you just hiring out contractors and not having this in-house team that could handle this project.
I think that the lack of a clear vision is sort of apparent. It's like we need, someone. I think Microsoft's to blame a little bit for that too. It's a little bit of a butterfly effect
Oh
of
yeah.
saying we don't really necessarily need Bungie per se if they want, more of the profits of this. Like, we have the character, we have the rights, like let's just have someone else make the Halo games and Master Chief will do the work for us. Well, I think that you kind of see that when you have that big of a change, a totally different studio that has a different vision for that character, what that can eventually lead to. And so to me, the Halo, the second Halo trilogy is just a lot more disjointed than the first. The first
Yes.
had a little bit of that. The second one, just an entirely different thing. And yeah, I agree. The multiplayer just sort of being a reflection of current multiplayer expectations. I do think that they're probably in a difficult position because you look at how profitable some of these multiplayer games are with the
Oh
way
yeah.
that they do it, where it's a free to play, buy the battle pass, get the microtransactions, make Scrooge McDuck dollar vaults
Yeah.
that you can dive into the money. Like, that's obviously something that I think most companies are going to look at and say, we want to do that. But the big draw for a lot of Halo fans, I have to believe, is one, a little bit of that nostalgia of the multiplayer that Halo built. I mean, Halo
Hmm.
2 really built the modern multiplayer for online gaming, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So it's like we all grew up, if we grew up playing the Halo games with that style of multiplayer where it's not really so much tied to these rankings hitting certain metrics like, oh, I got 100 headshots during this season or whatever, so I unlocked this thing. It's
Hmm.
nothing like that. It was more of, are you winning? What's your kill death? Like, you know, just basic multiplayer stuff that was still fun to do, and just winning was all that really mattered. You could hop into whatever you wanted, if you wanted to play casual, if you wanted to play co-op. And yeah, stripping those things away when they are such a core foundation of your game is a huge risk. You might
Yeah.
think, oh, everyone's just going to get on board because this is the new style of multiplayer. But I think that if most players had to choose, they would not want to play in a microtransaction season pass style of game. And the only thing that really leads a lot of people to those games is the fact that it's free to play, so low bar of entry, especially for kids. Their parents don't have to buy them a game. They can download a game, play it for free if they really want to, and then that little stuff is an extra. Halo Infinite isn't that game. Halo was never that game. It was always about a big, like, cinematic campaign, lots of explosions. You're playing an action hero. And then that carries over into like some good, friendly competition between people that are just passionate about Halo. So it's two totally different mentalities. And I think to blanket apply the new standard, like money making multiplayer to the Halo
Yeah.
franchise is something that needed to be navigated a little bit more delicately than it was.
And it's a shame. It's a shame. And I think I dig on this more than anything because it followed the AAA broken game cycle. I mean, Microsoft acquiring Activision made so much sense when you roll out Overwatch 2 in an insanely broken arena just to make more money. Same thing with this. Like, you roll out campaign, it's separate than multiplayer, which is not successful and not done, it's still in beta. Then that launches, and it's like, oh, by the way, there's going to be like the biggest and best and most in-depth Halo Forge map maker ever. Oh, but we didn't do it yet. Oh,
Yeah,
but like maybe in 2022. And then we don't
right.
even get like an official beta until November 8th, 2022 as part of this winter update.
Yeah.
Like that to me is just like, yes, I appreciate you working on it. And I feel so much for those developers who had to work on this game. Like they made a
Mhm.
fantastic product overall. And like, they're taking the brunt of this, but it really falls on the execs. It falls on Microsoft. It falls on so much stuff for them to overpromise and overcommit to this when they didn't have any of this planned out.
Yeah. Definitely, and overpromising is a big issue within the gaming industry. It's been that way for a really long time. The most prominent in my memory is the Fable series, where
Mm-hmm.
it's you will have all these grand ideas of everything. The problem with Halo Infinite is that they were promising things that already existed. So we
Yeah.
knew like Forge was a possibility. We knew about the co-op multiplayer. We knew about, matchmaking, ranked head-to-head style, free-form gameplay. But for them to not be able to deliver that, especially with a relatively lengthy development cycle,
Mm-hmm.
I think that is what leads to some pretty valid criticism. And I agree with you. The frustrating aspect of that is that it's just another one in a long list of incomplete games that get sold at full game price. They don't
Yes.
discount it and ask you to make it up later. They say, pay us the full game price. We will probably give you all the other stuff later. It'll be in free updates. And it's like, maybe this time they kind of did, right? But in that same vein, they're also asking you to play that game for a very long time, which I don't agree with. I think that when you buy a game, you should be able to play the game and then not have to check back 2 years from now. But the video game industry is just different. It's not the same way that you and I, the stuff that we grew up on is not the way it is. Maybe younger players are more okay with that stuff because they like the longer cycles. I don't know. But ultimately, I see a lot of both points of view of liking the newer style of gameplay that Halo Infinite brought, and also maybe being a little frustrated with how all that was rolled out.
Yeah. And I think that's really it. Overall, I think Halo Infinite in campaign aspect, at least for me, I think's fantastic. I think it hits the mark on a lot of the stuff that people wanted to feel like Master Chief again. And again, I think the grapple shot, I was very wary of it. It's very reminiscent of like the 2012s of like everyone having a bow and arrow in their game that one shot kills. It was very reminiscent of like everyone jumping on the bandwagon of having a grapple. It actually worked really well and felt natural with it. And it's one of those things where I wish we could have had a little bit more put into the multiplayer and a couple other aspects of it, but I think for what
Sure.
it's worth, I think it was a good wrap up to kind of their supposed trilogy.
Yeah. And I think for you and I, it's probably just a little different because this feels more like a victory lap than anything else, where we got what was the base thing, the base story through the first 3 games, and then maybe the subsequent 2 with all the little filler stuff. And all this other stuff, it's fine. It's there for us. But I don't know that either of us are so invested in it that we expected to be blown away by anything or anything like that. And you correct me if I'm wrong because I don't want to speak for you, but
Yeah, I think that's very true. I going back to Halo 4 and 5, I played the campaign in a lot of multiplayer all the way through Reach, and then with 4, I beat the campaign once or twice, and then I played multiplayer for a little bit. Halo
mhm,
5, I beat the campaign once to know what it was, and I played more multiplayer mostly because like the Forge and like the map creators were fantastic with it. And we played a lot when we did the podcast game nights and stuff, but
sure.
as far as like the campaign stuff goes, played it once. So 343 just kind of like they even said, we're not following Bungie, we're not following anyone's footsteps, we're going to make our own footsteps, and that's what led us to Infinite. So I think overall, Infinite, I think, is as good of a capstone as we could have gotten with that trilogy. I think it's the best of the 3 when we're talking about 4, 5, and Infinite. Um, it's a shame that this 10-year cycle that they wanted Infinite to have has already been abandoned. I mean, so has kind of Seasons for Halo Infinite, as they've shrunken down the 343 team and have pretty much scrapped any idea of advanced Halo.
Mhm.
And the talks are to kind of outsource it again. So we'll see what the future holds. My hope is we get more side story games reminiscent of ODST, of giving us a different look at the Halo universe, whether from a different Spartan team or whether from a whole different way of doing it. I don't know. We'll have to see what the future holds with the series.
Absolutely. You know, and I'm now that they've made the decision to keep going with the Halo games and the Master Chief storyline, I think that I'm interested to see what other decisions they make for the future. And I think that they have as much time as they want to provide, stories going forward. So, I think that there's a lot of room for the Halo series to still make great games and going
Mhm.
forward, still deliver on a great Halo experience. It's just when you're looking at this now as a trilogy of games and reviewing sort of how that whole process went compared to the first three, I just think that there's some things that are left to be desired, but I think ultimately that's okay too, and we'll get to see even more as long as they learn from their mistakes. That's the
Yeah.
only important thing.
And we'll see how it goes.
So if I had to give this a rating, I would give it 117 grunts out of 343 elites divided by Forerunner, Banished, Reclaimer, Heretic out of 10.
Well, if you're taking my ranking, I shall take yours. I would give it, from all we've said, let's say I'll give it 3 scores. Campaign, 6.5 to a 7 out of 10. Multiplayer and the issues we had early on and a lot of the stuff, 5.5, 6 out of 10. Giving it in total about a 6.5, 7 out of 10 for a game, which I think is pretty reasonable for where we saw a lot of the issues into it.
Yeah. I mean, it's no joust. That's for sure.
It's no joust. And as we come to a close, we are ending the way we started, with our Halo content from our first episode being Halo Combat Evolved to our last being Halo Infinite. It has been a wild ride. It's been fantastic. It's been years. You've had to deal with my voice and deal with everything that we've put up with and done. But it's something I never imagined happening when we first pushed record to where we are now. And, for us, we are moving on in different chapters in our lives. And it's just been such a really fun, cool, amazing, once in a lifetime experience to do this. And so, unfortunately, or fortunately for some of you, who knows, this will be kind of our last episode that we put together.
Yeah. No, it's been really great. I've really enjoyed, super grateful that, you asked me to join on and we get to talk all these video games. Obviously, one of my favorite things is just you and me, just still being able to catch up and talk about video games and things. I've loved the experience with the community. I've met a lot of great people and talked about a lot of great games. But yeah, I think that this feels like a nice, natural wrap up. I mean, this will be episode 99, Halo Infinite. We've done this for years now. I've been on this podcast, and I definitely didn't expect that much. My external hard drive is filled with gaming podcasts, and it's been a lot of fun. But definitely, I think a good time for us to wrap up, move on. Thank you, everyone that has listened to us this entire time. Really appreciate you. It's honestly, every time that I upload an episode, I look at the viewership and the listenership and just, I'm like, wow, this many people listen to us talking about these games every single week that we release an episode. That's crazy to me, whether it be 5 people or 4,000 people or whatever the episode gets at the time. Just super grateful for all of you, and thank you so much for being a fan of the podcast.
Absolutely. It's been amazing, and it's always bittersweet to end something. I think Derek and I have talked about this, and I think for us, it's always been fantastic to do this, and it wouldn't be possible without all of you who've listened over the years, supported us over the years, played games with us, um, jumped into our dumb, silly discussions on Discord and over socials. It's been wonderful. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited to end this on a high note on, well, not so much on Halo Infinite on the high note, but end the whole podcast itself
Definitely.
on a high note, and truly, truly thank you all for the support. We'll both be doing more fun stuff in the future, together and on our own. So we're going to keep creating and having fun. But this will be our final wrap up for y'all.
Thank you guys so much. Research for this episode was done by Alex Kendall and Derek Baker. The intro and outro for the Finish the Fight podcast was given to us by our friend Evan Barr, and our lovely artwork was provided by Aaron Shattuck.
Beautiful people. And I want to thank those people on our Patreon with Snide T-Bird, Nick Hyman, and Anthony Gooch. But I also want to thank all of you who've supported us over the years. And it's been an insane number of you, with Brian Yost, Big Parrot 333, Kevin Benson, Keller Kane, Prophet's Bane, Mr. Toot, Mustard Chief, Lee Tom John, Irby Spicy, Cameron Collier, William Kroll, Mr. 1898 himself, Climbing Spork, Nathan Vandervoort, Loki 2014, Grant ODST, Big Papa Semechki, Mick Chief, Richard Scanlon, Tuna 0317, Tom Goulding, Mega, McCrae Austin, Bold Assassin, Graham, that LL Gamer Guy, Quantum Easy, Dillfix, Alex Jarper, D Gamer 1298, Jonas, Brenton and Clarissa, Miles Berthiam, Trace, Mr. Choff, Duststorm, Grant Dillon, ZZ Slipaway, Pascal Orozco, Sean O'Keefe, Vex, Angry Canadian, Brandon Reshitar, Harvey Chong, Francis, Sky the Bear, Tactics, Charles Zetter, and Alex C. Thank you all truly, truly so much. That's just on our Patreon people, but you know all of our people through Discords and our socials that have been integral into everything we've done. It's been so wonderful. And I thank you all so much.
Absolutely. And a lot of good nostalgia in there. When you were reading all those names, I was like, oh yeah, that guy and that guy and that guy and that guy. The list got a little smaller. That's okay. We all move on. Appreciate the support while it lasted, and, you know, excited for the future. You can, if you would like, still follow this podcast on Twitter. You can still follow this podcast on Instagram. You can still join our Discord. It's still free to join. The link is in the description. I'm sure that there will be a little bit of discussion about this, at the very least, in that Discord. I could be wrong. Maybe none of you got this far in the episode. You'll just be shocked when the next episode doesn't come out, and then maybe you'll ask us questions then. But if you want to do that, the Discord link is in the description of this episode, and we would love to see you there.
And as always, you can catch us on Twitch, doing our own things, jump into some other stuff. You can see me at twitch.tv/sourman70. That's twitch.tv/sourman70, as well as Derek over at twitch.tv/thebakerman247. That is twitch.tv/thebakerman247. And you can also catch Derek on his other streams over on Whatnot. Derek, do you have your handle over on Whatnot?
It is the Bakerman 24/7.
Just search them all around, baby. So Derek's going on doing a lot of.
You can find me everywhere at the Bakerman 24/7. Pretty much all my socials. Gamer tag made specifically for the Halo days. I'm still repping it, but yeah, I'm over on Whatnot, ripping packs. We're catching Charizards, doing all kinds of fun stuff. I'm on usually every Friday. Come hang out, just say hello. I'm doing giveaways and stuff there too. You could get some free stuff from me.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So you can catch us around. We'll be sharing stuff in our Discord and our socials and just what's going on if you want to follow us with that. But yeah, that's where you can find us.
You can listen to this podcast on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you catch your podcasts. If you haven't yet, please leave us a review. It helps us out a lot. It'll give us staying power after we stop publishing episodes. If you just keep giving us good reviews, we'll just climb the charts that way. And then who knows? Maybe we get enough power to come back, but it would probably take a lot
longer than ever.
But anyway, we would need some strong reviews. But thank you so much to everyone who has taken the time to review over the years. We read all of those. We've appreciated a lot. We've tracked over the course of the podcast, where we rank compared to other podcasts. It's always been consistently high. We've always had good metrics compared to other non-professional podcasts, which has been fantastic. And so thank you guys so much for giving us that.
And with that, this has been our coverage of Halo Infinite. It's typically where I'd ask you where you want to see us next. What do you want to see? But we've got one maybe special thing for you. Might be related to something, it might not be. Who knows what's going to happen? But with that, as always, to this entire thing, I have been your host, Alex Kendall.
And I have been your host, Master Chief Sergeant Johnson, Derek Baker.
And this has been, as always, Finish the Fight, a gaming podcast.